Thank you, everyone, for coming and joining in on this special conversation with Ruth. As you know, the Profitable Farmstay is a series of conversations with farmstay owners around the world, and this is to find out insider details on how on tips and strategies on how we can be successful in our farmstay business. So, Ruth, thank you so much for taking the time out. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Could you start with telling me a little bit about your farmstay?
Sure. We started actually as farm lodging with a guest house on our farm, and we moved over a period of a couple of years to an actual farmstay where people could interact and participate with us on the farm. I've always been into hospitality, whether it was being a private chef or just having people over a lot. So that came naturally to me. And there's so much to teach about farming. So that kind of went hand in hand. The entire farm to table process, being able to share that with people, that was really special. So it was kind of a natural fit for us.
Interesting name, Dogwood Hill.
Mm-hmm. The hills were up in the hills. I mean, everything is on a pretty significant grade around here. There's nothing flat, but the hills are rolling and covered in the springtime with dogwood blossoms. So it's a very prominent feature in the Ozarks during the spring. So
fantastic. Ruth, just give us an idea of your inventory of accommodation that will be, and the size of your farm that will be useful for the audience to know.
Sure. We have on one side of the farm, one side of the road, we have 72 acres with our main guest house, our barn, and our private residence are a little bit farther, a little further away, but we can still see each other. And then so most of the farm activity happens in the barn and by our residence. And then across the road, we have another 10 acres with my daughter's house is up there, and we have a vintage bus that we rent out. So I think the main house sleeps 8 to 10-ish, maybe a couple of little kids, we can go up to 12, and then the bus sleeps too.
Beautiful. By the way, I love your vintage bus. What a cool idea that is.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you tell us about unique features or experiences that sets the Dogwood Hill set apart from the rest of the farmstays?
Sure. I think one of the things that's really key to our farmstay is that we grow hydroponic barley fodder for our cows, our dairy cows, and guests can take part in that. We have a climate-controlled barn, small barn, that people can go in. They can help with that, depending on the age of the kids. And they can bring that hydroponic barley fodder like biscuits. It's, we try and cut it up for them in about a 4-inch square, and they can hand feed that to the cow, and the cow reaches out with its tongue and grabs that and takes it out. I mean, it's just people are just delighted with that. And then they go in and they can hand milk the cow, and then we talk to them about processing it. And then we bring it upstairs and we make ricotta cheese or paneer, and then serve them a big breakfast. And that's kind of, it's a very, the farm to table process is very in a small space, but very complete here.
Beautiful, beautiful. So could you just describe what's a typical day for guests staying at the farm? What time do they check in, and what happens assuming that a guest comes and stays for a day?
Okay. Well, we've set up a 2-day minimum because of cleaning and where we are remote. So all of those factors, and also it cuts into your sales and your revenue when you have to keep cleaning. So that's a whole nother thing. But they would check in, sometime after 4 o'clock. A lot of them will schedule dinner the first night. We also have a drive-in movie theater in town, so they might go do that later. Depending on whether it's summer or winter, we have a big discrepancy in when the sun goes down, and a drive-in, it's outside. So that has a lot to do with it, what time of the year they're staying with us. And then they would, if they've come down for dinner, we have videos and stuff. There's no TV or internet in the guest house, and that's intentional. We want them to unplug. But if they want to just grab a movie to put on in the evening, when everybody's winding down, that's great. They can borrow. We have a extensive library. Then they come down in the morning around 8 o'clock. No, we don't milk at 5 because, guests don't like to come up down and milk at 5 o'clock in the morning on vacation, so we're trying to remember they're still on vacation. So all of our dairy cows have been adjusted to 8 o'clock milking. And they do the chores. They help with the fodder, the feeding, ducks and chickens and things like that are running around. And like I said, tailoring it to the kids' ages. And then after milking is done and all that stuff, then they come upstairs and they have a full farm breakfast. After that, they can go hike on property with the goats. We have about 16 goats or so, and they, have about 45 acres or so that's fenced in that they can hike all around in the woods, up and down the hollers. So it's really nice. It's good exercise. And then there's a lot of things to do locally. Like I said, we're next to the Buffalo National River and hiking in the forest. And there's a lot of antiques and things like that to do in the local community. So we try and send them out to the local community so that we actually are helping them share the fact that we have people staying on the farm with the rest of the county. And then if they've scheduled it, they can come back for dinner with us, and and then that's a day. But we really do try and get them. There's so much to do in the area, waterfall hikes, all sorts of stuff, all depending on seasonality, that they can go spend a day off the farm, relatively close distance for being such a rural area.
Beautiful. I love the fact that you made it a 2-day minimum, because from my experience, I see a sea of difference between guests coming just for 1 day versus guests staying at least for 2 or 3 days. It makes a big difference in their own experience at the farm. So that's a good decision.
I don't think they wouldn't be able to have a full day on the farm, and you really do need that. Besides the staffing issues, really, they feel like they've just unpacked, and they really wouldn't get much other than the morning experience out of it. They don't get the time to unplug. And that's we're such a fast-paced society that they really just need to come and just relax a little bit and not do a fast-paced, we have board games and stuff like that. We just really encourage that relaxed time.
Beautiful. Let's move into marketing and how do we get bookings, Ruth. How do you attract guests to your farm stay, and what specific strategies has really worked best for you?
Sure. We are members of Farmstay US, and that is a very good platform, very specific to people looking to travel that way. The next one down, that's probably our next largest when we look at our stats, is Google. People just say, I want to stay on a farm. And then they have a selection of them come up, and they can then choose from there. And then the next one is our State Tourism Association. So we're on that one, and that one has probably 27% of our inquiries come through there. And after that, then we have a regional association, and then Facebook, and that goes back. I think Google picks some of that, the social media stuff also, because they click right from the social media to our website. So that one kind of gets a little difficult to figure out whether it came specifically through Facebook or just a Google search.
Very interesting. I like the fact that you have a really good grasp on the numbers, and it's very important to look at the stats and to see where people are coming from. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So when people are exploring options on where to stay, I'm sure they'd like to email you or they'd like to call you, asking you for information before they take a decision. Some of them go ahead with the decision. Some of them may differ or may choose someone else. So I'm very curious to know, with every lead or a prospective call that is coming in, how do you capture them?
It depends on how it's coming in. If they're messaging me right through Facebook, I get a notification, and I also have a instant reply that says we might be in the middle of farm life. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Try and make sure that they're not left hanging, but that also explains to them the reality of it. Like, you might just be milking the cows. I've answered the phone and I'm milking the cows, you know, and they're like, wait, they're like, are you like milking the cows like right now? And I'm like, yes. So I'll tell them I don't have my calendar right in front of me, but I'll get back to you in just a couple minutes. Following up is so important. Answering the phone. It's hard in an age where we have so many telemarketers and junk, like spammy stuff coming in, but you just have to kind of bite the bullet on that one. And I always answer, Dogwood Hills Guest Farm, can I help you? That way it kind of weeds out some of the ones that are spammy, and they, this way they know that where they've gotten. I think how people answer the phone, whether you have staff, whoever's answering the phone, it has to be very professional and very concise so people know that they got the right number. Otherwise they're thrown off a little bit, and then you kind of mess up that conversation right from the get-go. I think the other thing is my website also. Make sure all your notifications are on so that if you get an inquiry through your website, it notifies you right away on your phone, and you can go right back to that and say, I'll be right with you. Give me maybe an hour, maybe I'm doing something on the farm, and I will get back to you as quick as I can. I think that must be, because people really do comment on, like, if I call them back in an hour or even 2 hours, they're like, oh, you got back to me so quickly. I'm like, oh, is it really? Like, I thought I was taking a long time. So I think we need to, collectively work on that, making sure we get back to people, even though we're in the middle of the day, even if it's a quick note, a little message. I saw your message. I'll get back to you as soon as I'm done with this project or something. I think that really helps hang on to people. And it also promotes the authenticity of what you're offering.
Very true. And I completely agree with you on the importance of follow-up. I'm curious to know, how do you follow with people who just inquire, but they don't book, but I'm sure they have intentions of booking later. So how do you ensure that they don't forget about you and about your farm stay?
A lot of the times, the people that have at least gone through my website, they've probably also subscribed. There we go, to my email. And that way I have their information. Then they're going to get a follow-up email. I send out like a quarterly newsletter, not so much that people are like, oh, I don't want to know, but so it's enough to keep them saying, oh, like, I wonder what's going on the farm. And then I give them kind of like the seasonality, what's happened with that. But following up with that, I'm able to look through. I go back and I look down at my messages every so often. And, like on my website, I'll look through and I'll scroll through them and make sure that I've actually, addressed all the issues, and at least try once a week to go through. If somebody said, you sent them back information and they asked for dates, I'll go back in and I'll say, like, oh, I saw, I was wondering if you'd made a decision. I still currently have that open, but people are starting to book for that time frame. So I wanted to check in with you again. Just kind of admit that they're feeling like, okay, that you're making sure that they're a priority because they already connected with you before you start taking other reservations. And that helps a lot too. People get busy. That's why they're coming to the farm, so they can unplug, right? So
very true.
Remind them.
Very true. Ruth, I know you mentioned about the importance of being present on Farmstay USA, and then you had your Farmstay Association and your regional association. Apart from that, are there any other strategies that has really driven up a lot of inquiries your way? Could be a media mention, a TV appearance, or being present on social media. So can you tell us which one of those, or something else that has really worked for you?
Yes, we can constantly get in contact and try and schedule them throughout the year with either social media people or bloggers or news, anything like that. We try and keep that as a regular thing where, like, we just had somebody come, and I'm going to be posting that. We had them do a whole thing on food in Arkansas, and so they came to the farm and did a piece on that. Those things are invaluable when you're talking about media, because they've got followers. And when those followers are, it's like it could be a whole new group that you have not tapped into. And being open, I mean, we've had such a eclectic group of people come to do kind of a story on the farm, that's been really amazing for us because it's really opened up doors to areas, like I said, we would have never thought to market to, you know.
What are your different sources of revenues? Clearly, accommodation is one major part of it, but apart from accommodation, what else?
We're a micro dairy. We do baked goods. We specialize in gluten-free. We have a dedicated kitchen, so that's like a whole nother market. But we also, actually, I downplay that end of it because people that are not gluten-free, I don't want them to think that it's not for them. We do a lot of very focusing on our dairy, but then all of a sudden one year we had a whole bunch of calves, so we are raising veal, but it's a different kind. Veal is a dairy product, you know, from dairy farms, but we do it differently. Our cows are out. The calves stay with their moms for almost 10 months. When mom is ready to wean, then they go for processing. It's a whole different thing. People have a bad feeling about veal here because it used to be like they would put them in the little calf hut and they never see anybody. And then, so we're trying to educate people also about how to raise it, but that's been a new product for us this year, just by happenstance, you know, it just worked out. So that all goes through the dairy. And then we do dinners. We do to-go dinners that we're by the Buffalo National River. So there's a lot of seasonal traffic. Having meals ready to go for campers and people staying in cabins is a very good thing. We do baked goods and pastry and stuff like that. So Fridays and Saturdays, when people are checking into the cabins, we try and have things ready. We've added in brunch this year for Saturday brunch from like 10 to 1. I'm going to throw something in right there is you have to make sure that what you're doing, not everything at once. You start with one thing. When you've got that under your belt, then add something else. Make sure that's working because we're all family businesses, right? We want to make sure that we're not overloading our family. Checking in and saying like, hey, is Friday evening going to be okay to do pizza? Is Saturday brunch going to be okay to do that? You know, and then we can be done. You know, it was a matter of arranging those things. We may be able to hire somebody else if you need a little bit of extra help. Making sure those things, because your family, you're talking about a family farm, your family's your priority. So we don't take, you know, we could be booked 180 days a year and we're not. We increased our prices instead so that we're making the same amount of money that we would have been making with 180 days, running our butts off all the time. Now we've doubled that base rate. We're making the same amount of money with 90 days. So now we can go from 90 days to maybe 120 days and say, okay, that feels comfortable. Let's do that. And then, you know, we put some other parameters in. I think all of those things are so important with running your business, this type of business in particular.
You're absolutely right, Ruth. I mean, it's very important to balance between having families enjoy the entire farmstay experience, at the same time running a business. I think that balance is very important that you touched upon. I also loved the fact that you increased your prices. So can you talk to us about that mentality? Because there's always a pushback amongst many people saying that, hey, I'm going to lose customers if I increase. So how did you come about that decision of increasing prices? It'll be very interesting to hear.
Sure. Well, when we realized that we weren't covering our costs. So that had to happen when the, you know, in interest rates, insurance, all these other things, we still had a mortgage on the bed and breakfast. So when it was a no-brainer when it wasn't making costs and we weren't making any money, we weren't covering it. Just from the bed and breakfast point, not even the farm end of it. Farms are hard to, you know, if you separate the farm out, a lot of farms don't make money anyhow. At least here in Arkansas, it's very hard to, you know, to farm and just make a living. But that's also one of the reasons people open farmstays, right? We just about doubled our base rate. So we charge a base rate for the bed and breakfast, which is, you know, a daily rate. And then we have a per person rate that goes to the farm revenue. And that is for them coming down, spending a couple hours with us in the morning. We have a very definitive time. They come at 8, they leave by 11. Now that we're figuring we've got 3 hours, 2 hours with the guests in the barn, and then another hour for breakfast, and they're getting a full breakfast with that. So that's all the per person. And I did just go up on that a little bit. Actually, yesterday I raised them, I think everything about $5 on the per persons and maybe $20 on the base rate, because things are just so expensive right now. When I did that, I was really worried. I was like, that was probably the scariest moment of this whole thing, was like, okay, I'm going to double these prices and we're going to see what happens. And we actually had the same number of people, same number of nights booked out at double.
Wow.
So here it was like, oh, that was a win. And then we started. And also we found that the clients that are coming for the higher rate are also wanting a more inclusive experience. So they will add on dinner. They will add on cooking classes. They will add on felting classes, anything that you can offer to the guests while they're here as that package. As your rates go up, you pull more of the people that want that all-inclusive in. And that was fabulous. Yeah.
It's beautiful that you mentioned about those add-ons. Could you tell me a little bit more about what are the different add-ons that you have for your guests to choose from?
Sure. We have, there's a couple of different things. We have a felting class, which is needle felting. We have 2 fiber sheep on the farm that are my daughter's 4-H project. That's a big group in like a farming group in the States that the kids learn about and show cows and stuff and all that. So it's all inclusive. So those were her 4-H projects many, many years ago, and they're still with us. So people are really intrigued that they're actually using the wool from the farm to make like a coaster. They, maybe a 4x4 coaster, and they can pick their pattern and everything, and we can be done within about 2 hours. We charge $60 a person for that. And my daughter that's her income. She gets that money. She's in charge of that whole thing. She's 22 now. And she works here with me on the farm. It's just the 2 of us. So we really, like I said, we have to strategize about time spent. We do a cooking class, making hand-rolled pasta with our ricotta cheese that we make on the farm. So they'll get that whole part. So we add that on, and that's $60 a person. We do like a pizza class, I think is $50. And then they can, we do all of our own dough. We make that in the morning, and then they come in and it's a full dinner. They get a salad with that and dessert, both of those classes. We are adding in a flower pressing class this year. So, it can be seasonal based on what flowers are available, or even nature prints. And I'm hiring somebody else from in the community to come and do that. So they'll sign up, and then that person will come over and do the class. So that was a way to do it. Have that offered. You increase time for them here on the farm, but it's not taking out of Grace's and my time. So that was really good. And you can add in things like that. It can not necessarily have to be just from what you do on your farm. It can be your hobby. Maybe you want to do like a crochet class or macrame or basket weaving, anything like that. They're here to learn, and we can really maximize on that and find out what they can do, even if they do like 1 class a day to fill their days on the farm. It also gives you downtime, though, because then you've got them scheduled times. They don't need to just be hanging out with you on the farm all day just because they're lodging with you. And I think boundaries like that are very clear, and also help keep everything running smoothly,
Yeah. I'm curious to know, these add-on these classes that you mentioned, have they had a positive impact in increasing the number of room nights booked?
Yes, I've had, and we get repeat customers that come back. But when I talk to them, and that's the key thing, like I saw here on too, we do have it listed on Airbnb. But most of 99% of my reservations come through our website, and they will send me an email. I'll email them back. We ask a lot of questions. We talk back and forth. I like that interaction, and I've steered away and canceled platforms that I was on that did not allow for that interaction. They were trying to be more concise, and they wanted to do it all through their platform. And I'm like, this is so personal. You want to find out how old their kids are, what their hobbies are, what they enjoy doing, food allergies. You're talking about cooking classes, things like that. These are all things you want to know ahead of time. But I did find that by adding on these things, people, when I offer them, I have some of them on the website and some of them might be more transient depending on what the season is or what I have. Maybe we're just about to have calves coming or baby goats or something like that, and they will book. But a lot of that happens in that conversation with the guest before they even come to the farm. So I think they extend their stay. A lot of times, they might be confined to a weekend, coming in Friday and leaving Sunday just because of work schedules. But if they can make it, if they're just trying to decide during break times, they will typically stay longer to do more things. Yeah.
Got it. Ruth, I'm very curious to know. I've usually seen, not just with me, but even with many other people with farm stays, that weekends are a lot easier to get your places filled up. But weekdays sometimes could be a challenge. Are you facing a similar kind of an issue? If so, has something worked for you to fill in bookings on weekdays?
Okay, yeah, we actually tried to rearrange our schedule a little bit last year to encourage Friday night, Saturday night stay, or unless it's a holiday weekend, and then a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday stay, because that allows me for baking. That gives me Monday, to clean. She's cleaning, I'm baking for the week to ship out orders on Monday. People don't check in till Monday night. That kind of worked for us by giving them definitive days. That helped, like saying, okay, you can either come Friday and Saturday, or you can come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That helped. I also started marketing. I noticed after COVID that we had a lot of people coming, multiple generations. Grandparents started traveling with the grandkids and the kids. But grandparents will also travel with the kids, especially preschool age, and they'll bring them up. So that's a really good market to reach out to, is shift your gears a little bit and see who is available. There's also more people working remotely. Now, we don't have Wi-Fi in the house, so that kind of, affects us that way. But other people who can offer that, where people are going to work remote, that helps with the weekdays. I find too, once summer hits or we have our breaks from school, then those weekdays are not hard to fill. It's mostly during the year when kids are in school. You have to be a little bit more creative and reach out to a different population. You might reach out to your retirees. You might reach out to your, your 20 somethings, 30 somethings that don't have kids yet, or kids that are school age yet. You're going to reach out to the ones with real littles. Yep. Or groups of friends traveling together. You just have to be a little bit more creative. You have to look at who your audience is at the moment, and then where, like Facebook, my audience is 45 to 65 years old, and on Instagram, they're the 20 to 30-year-olds. So I can tailor my information also on both of those. A lot of times it's, repetitive. I post the same thing to Facebook and Instagram, but I also remember that I'm trying to reach out to those younger folks, and that might be more of an audience that you can tap into.
Yeah, I love how you have fixed on the age group, Facebook versus Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It is very true. I think that's a very smart thing to do. It's something that many other farm stay owners can actually learn from your experience. I think that's good.
Good.
Let's talk about loyalty, because like you rightly mentioned, that when people come to the farm stay, it's a very personal approach, right? And that's what differentiates us from somebody going and staying in a resort or a hotel. So I'm very curious to know what has really helped you get repeat bookings from the same family or person.
Oh, I don't think it was anything intentional that I started, but these are the things that I noticed that have brought them back, is when we interact, like I make sure that I step back for a moment when they're all doing something, like everybody's around milking the cow, or everybody's in the middle of the cooking class. I step back and take pictures for them. And then we or, we sit there and there's a lot of food happening on the farm, if you haven't realized that yet. And that's a good time for conversation. And it also brings people together. So they'll follow the farm. They'll comment on things, they might say, hey, has that cow had the baby yet? Make sure you answer those kinds of things. And also taking pictures for people and then sharing them with them, whether we're dropping them on their iPhone or if we're sending them in an email. That's like such a personal thank you. It's a personal reach to them. So I think those things kind of help build that. And also they're trusting their family with you to keep them safe, to educate. There's all these things that I think we have a very good way to build that repeat client, and they become, when I think a lot of people find that people come as strangers and leave as friends. And that happens often because you share many. They're also in the middle of your personal life. I mean, this is your everyday and you've invited them in. So that really helps. Another reason, though, to make sure that you put good boundaries up, because, this is not a job that you go home from, right? We live on day. So you really, really have to protect that for yourselves as well. But that is also, it's a plus and a negative. You have to balance it.
That's right. That's right. I love it. People come in as strangers and they leave as friends. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And I completely agree with you on the photographs. What I do is I actually take drone videos of guests
Cool.
and I send it to them, and they're very, very appreciative because that's something that they really value it. My next question to you, Ruth, is have you considered implementing a membership or a subscription-based model to generate recurring income?
Yes, actually, we're in the throes of that right now. We are looking at doing a cooking class online based on the things that we grow and make here on the farm, and geared towards a pretty local audience, I think, and that also we're looking at doing some YouTube videos once a week, and then also a subscription for a live cook through. Like they would hop on and maybe it would be an hour and we'd do the whole dinner, and they could cook with me right here in the kitchen, and they'd have the ingredients list ahead of time, and not high, like $5 a month or something, and get as many people as you can at a good price. So there's the difference. Now on social media, because you're not trying to cram them all in your kitchen, right? Then you have the opportunity to offer a low price and get as many people as you want in that subscription, where when you're limited to how many people you can have, you need to increase your price and narrow down your days because it's in the middle of your life. So completely different platforms that you have options, and they work very differently. So you kind of got to see what works for you, though, also.
Do you have gift cards available for people to purchase? Has that worked well for you?
We've done a few gift certificates. That hasn't been, we're in a really, really rural area. So people just stopping by. I've been kind of pivoting more and more towards just getting them to stop to the farm for direct farm sales. The gift cards, gift certificates and things like that. Like when I'm asked to do an auction item, I usually do that. For either, depending on, how big their audience is, maybe I'll do a 2-night stay for 2 people, and then they can add on everything else. So that'll just be their base rate covered in their cleaning. And charge cleaning fee. Absolutely charge a cleaning fee. You need to pay somebody to do that. It's not always you. The running, no matter where it is, it's usually, US dollars, it's $50 a bedroom. So if you've got a 3-bedroom house, $150, and $100 goes to the cleaning person and $50 goes to the house for water, replacing all your cleaning products, things like that. So that's a definite, don't miss that budget item. But
talking about gift certificates, do people buy and gift it to someone else? Just curious to know if that's a good idea.
Yeah, I tailor it to the how many people are going to be attending. If they're asking for a donation. If there's only 100 people, I'll do like a $50 gift certificate or something, where if it's going to be like 1,000 people at a conference, I'll do a weekend stay. So balancing it depending on how much the market is that you're going to get and how much visibility you'll get from that. That's really been my experience with gift certificates, is usually donations. Some people will ask me, I had a guy buy a gift certificate for an entire 5-day farm stay for like 8 people. I was like, okay. Sometimes, but I think we tend to jump to not value our time and our product. We say, oh, like I wouldn't spend that much, but other people will. And because they desperately want to know what you're doing, they want to know, they want that experience. And that's what you're selling to them, is the experience. It's not the bed. Yes, it's about the bed. They want a good night's sleep, but it's the experience that you're marketing to a whole world of people that it's not available to.
Yeah, very well said. We know that reviews and ratings on whichever platform they book plays a very important role for getting future bookings. How do you ensure that guests leave a review for you? Is there a particular strategy that you follow?
Yeah, I have like certain giveaways. Like I have stickers, the kind that everybody likes to put on their water glass or on the back of their laptop or something. I have those. I have some periodicals that have a really good article in them about us, and I may have gotten extra copies for that. If they're the thing that I found is our biggest challenge is we did not have good Wi-Fi even in our barn, and we finally got like satellite Starlink Wi-Fi. Made a huge difference, because people that are doing things on their phone, especially your 20 and 30-year-olds, are posting right exactly when it's happening. So you want to give them the opportunity, whether you have good cell signal or if you have Wi-Fi that they can connect to for no charge, it's going to serve you very well, because you're going to get those posts and tags. The other thing is the, hold on a second. Reviews. I have some simple giveaways, and I'm like, oh, would you, I feel, especially if they haven't brought it up or something, I'll be like, hey, I'd like to share with you this, the only thing, and they're like, oh, how much does it cost? I'm like, nothing, I just need a review. Could you put a review about the farm on, and then where is it? Maybe my Google reviews are fewer, or maybe my Yelp or something specifically. Could you put it on Yelp for me and tell them where you need it to go? That helps a lot. And if you don't mind, can I talk about negative reviews?
Absolutely.
And how to deal? Okay. We get very few. I had, I think, 3 in our whole time of negative reviews. One was somebody who wanted to come to the farm. She would put her baby down on the ground in the middle of the summer and said that the baby had ticks on it. Well, we're in an organic farm, organically grown farm. We don't use tick granules. I have an assortment of sprays in the house that they can use for repellents. And you're in the woods. You're in a very wooded area. We have made other strides since then. We bring our chickens up there. They wander all the way up there now, and they help keep the ticks down, things like that. But, some summers it's really bad. So she addressed that, and she gave us a 4-star out of 5 just for the ticks. And I was like, so these are the things you write it out, you don't send it. You write it out, you send it to your mother-in-law, you send it to your husband. What do you think of this? Send it to my daughter. How does this sound? Is this a good reply? Don't just react in the moment. Very important, because people are going to look at that review, and then they're going to look at your reply to the review. And I addressed it. I said, if there's a different type of product than you'd like other than the ones provided, let us know, and we'd be happy to add that to the collection. You got to figure out a really diplomatic way to handle that. Another one was somebody put a review up, and they had never even been to our farm. They just hit us a 3-star review for nothing. I had to figure out who the person was. It was just crazy. And it was an older person, some like 60 plus, and they had hit it and they had no idea how to undo it. And I just had to eat it. I was like, okay, well. And then one other person was just, we had actually comped their stay. They were staying no charge, and they gave us a 4-star review. And it's just because they were the kind of person, they do not give 5-star reviews, period, to anyone. I was like, okay, so there was nothing to say on that one. We're just saying, we just hope you, but you got to think of something creative. One was, we really hope you enjoyed your stay.
Yeah.
And how are you going to get that across that, maybe that there wasn't, if there's something that didn't meet, that a 4-star review does not meet expectations in our, what our view is, it doesn't meet expectations. What could we do better to help you to meet expectations next time? And that way you're taking that whole thing and spinning it around. Even if it was like, you feel like there was nothing to spin on, you still got to figure it out.
Yeah.
You have to address negative reviews.
True. And one final question before we wrap up. I'm very curious to know, what are your future plans, Ruth? Let's say for the next 3 years, what are you most excited about?
I just told my daughter this morning that we have to redo our 5-year plan. Let's see, there's been so many things. I think the first thing that's not going to cost me anything else is to get that YouTube cooking show up and running. That's priority number 1 for this winter, happening like as we speak, putting it all together. The next thing is to probably have a little bit more produce on the farm, whether it's ours or local farmers. I've always networked with people within a 20-mile radius, which is my neighbors, in a rural area like that. Kind of trying to fill in the gaps, because we do have a grocery store like 30 minutes one way and 30 minutes the other way. So we have an opportunity to reach people here with having some really super great fresh produce that's just been picked for the weekends. So that's another thing, is to get a nice, actually talking to my farmers now, can you plant a little bit of extra of this? Maybe because, you need some variety. You can't have everybody planting the same thing and work with multiple people. It doesn't work out. So getting some variety, trying to get those things scheduled now is really important. So that's the next thing. And then we're looking at possibly changing our pavilion. We have an open air pavilion. We already have public restrooms between our barn and the pavilion, and making that more useful and turning that into a cafe instead, that would be open seasonally, but more like a 3-season cafe. So that's probably not this year. I don't see that happening this year, but maybe by next year, maybe by summer 25, that, or 26, that could be. So within the 3 years, I'd like to see that happening.
Fantastic. I want to wish you the very best. Sounds very exciting. And really, you've been a wonderful guest. You were very crisp in your answers. You're very direct. You always kept the other farmstay owners in mind when you were answering these. So a fabulous conversation, Ruth. Thank you so much for your insights, and look forward to sending you the book when it's ready.
Great, thank you. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and best wishes on your book and your grandmother's farm.